Okay, welcome back to the bigger picture. Welcome back to the Communist Manifesto. This is part two, and as you could see, next to the Communist Manifesto, I have the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, because I want to go also in that document. Some of you might have heard about the protocols, some of you might not. But these are documents that are considered to be fraud and all these other various things that they say about these documents that's circulating around there. I mean, around everywhere. It's there on the internet for you to do your own research. They're trying to disprove these documents to say that they're fraud, you shouldn't read them, but I'm a research person by nature, and I consider everything. I consider all information, and I make my own assessment as to, what I could visually see and feel. And like I said in the Communist Manifesto that we have been reading in part one, really touch on some serious things that's happening. Even though they try to disprove these documents saying that they're no good, they're fraud. But I'm here to just bring this information to you, and we're going to just pick up from where we left off in part one. And I believe where we left off was that hard-won, self-acquired, self-earned property. So I'm going to continue on. I'm going to start at but does wage labor, okay. But does wage labor create any property for the laborer? Not a bit. It creates capital. This is that kind of property which exploit wage labor and which cannot increase except upon condition of begetting a new supply of wage labor for fresh exploitation. So what is it saying here? So if we go back, but does wage labor create any property? That's a question. And it says not a bit. It creates capital because your labor, which is wage labor, it creates capital for who? I mean, not for you. Yeah, you're making money, but the industry that you're working for, whatever industry it is creating capital, is creating wealth. Your labor is creating wealth for whatever organization that you're working for, right? Else they wouldn't really pay you if they're not making more for your labor. So they're making way more for the labor that you contribute, for the labor that you bring to their business. And they always have to get fresh supply of labor to keep that profit going, right? That's how it works. But they call it exploitation. Property in its present form is based on the antagonism of capital and wage labor. What's an antagonist? Someone who's in opposition, right? Let us examine both sides of this antagonism. Scroll down. To be a capitalist is to have not only a purely personal but a social status in production. Capital is a collective product and only by the united action of many members, right? Because capital is a collective product because, when you and your fellow co-workers that go to your job and you're working, you're producing capital for that organization you're working for, whatever organization that is, because you're hired to turn over a profit. Your labor is turning over a profit. Each year, there's a profit. It works hand in hand. Your labor is bringing forth capital, right? So it says that only by the united action of all members of society can it be set in motion, right? The united action of all members in that society. So when everyone get up and they go to work and all that energy and all that labor that they bring, you know, it's what's creating the capital. When you hear that this company earned $500 billion, well, how do they earn this $500 billion? They sure can't do it if no one show up. So everyone has to show up to work, and they have to put in the work, and that make that organization, that business profitable. And it's profitable through your personal actions, your personal labor, showing up for work, right? Which convert into capital. So capital is therefore not only personal, it is a social power. When therefore capital is converted into common property, into the property of all members of society, personal property is not therefore transformed into social property. It is only the social character of the property that is changed. It loses class character, right? So when it's transferred, say for instance, an example would be, well, you go to work and you get paid for the service that you bring. So that capital that is paid to you is transferred from the personal, which is being a businessman who hired you for the job, and that capital is transferred to you, because you're going to use that money to buy things and to spend, for things that you need, for you and your family, and it just transfer from um, what they call the social property. It's just transfer from personal property to social property. So it loses its character, its class character, meaning that, you know, um, remember what I said in part one, where it's all about classism when it comes to labor. You have the rich, the upper middle class, and you have the wealthy, the 1%. You have middle class and you have poor. So we all fit into these different classes, and what they're saying is just um, what Reagan will call, trickle down economics, if you guys can remember that term, because they figure if you allow the rich to be rich, well, they're going to create business, and their capital will eventually trickle down to the poor or trickle down to you. It's trickle down economics, right? So that's what it's all about. So here's an example. It said, let us take wage labor. Wage labor, which is our labor, which is basically most people. If you don't own a business, you're going to work for somebody. So, that's wage labor. So the average price of wage labor is the minimum wage. So that's how they determine or decide how much the minimum wage is going to be for your wage labor. They've got to determine a minimum wage, right? And it said this is that quantum of the means of subsistence, meaning that they're determining how much you need to for your basic needs, so to basically survive in this society. And most people feel that's where they're at now, that they're working and they could barely really hang on. They could barely survive. So that's what it means when it said subsistence, because minimum wage is how they calculate what you would need to get the minimum that you need to survive. And for most of us, we can't even survive on that anyway. It said, which is absolutely requisite to keep the laborer, which is a requisite, which is required to keep the laborer in bare existence as a laborer, in bare existence as a laborer. So you can see what they're saying here. They're saying that um, under capitalism and the creation of the minimum wage is to keep the labor. It's a requisite, it's required to keep the laborer in bare existence as a laborer. So that's what minimum wage is. And as you can see, most people cannot survive on minimum wage really, but it's designed to keep you at bare existence. So, what therefore the wage laborer appropriates by means of his labor? So, what the wage laborer gets, what you can appropriate by the means of the labor that you provide, it said merely suffices to prolong and reproduce a bare existence. So, as a bare laborer, as getting or receiving minimum wage, it is just only to prolong and reproduce a bare existence. And I can sure a lot of us in this society can attest to that, where if you're making minimum wage, you're barely hanging on, literally. But this is to show you, like I said, the bigger picture, and to explain to you the reason why these things are set up the way it is, minimum wage. And it's just for bare existence. And it is set that way, right? It says, we by no means intend to abolish this personal appropriation of the products of labor, an appropriation that is made for the maintenance and reproduction of human life, and that leaves no surplus wherewith to command the labor of others. All that we want to do away with is the miserable character of this appropriation. So, what they're saying is that they are not trying to do away with your ability or to sustain yourself, at least to sustain yourself to be able, because back then man was quite content with the fruits of his labor and with enough to sustain himself, right? This excess, this constant drive for more money, more capital, this is the capitalistic mentality. It's kind of like, it's insatiable. It's feeding off your greed in a sense. Just always more money, more stuff, more things, right? This is what they are saying, that they're against this kind of capitalistic mindset, right? So when they say all that we want to do away with is the miserable character of this appropriation under which the laborer lives merely to increase capital, because that's basically what you're doing. That's basically, you're getting up every day, you're going to work, your labor is just merely to increase capital for someone else. That's basically for the capitalists, for the industrialists, right? That's what your labor is doing. But you're not benefiting from your own labor. You're benefiting someone else, because it's just merely to increase capital. And listen what it says, and is allowed to live only in so far as the interest of the ruling class requires it. So let me read that again. And is allowed to live only in so far as the interest of the ruling class requires it. Now you understand why so many unions, and we have the recent strike that was going to be at the port. I know many of you are aware of that. If you're watching TV, you will see recently they have the port strikes. And basically, you have strikes where the average laborer is saying, hey, give me an increase. I just want to feed my family. I just want to be able to feed myself. I just want to be able to eat. I need more money. The cost of things have gone up. And so you could see this negotiation with the capitalists. They're saying, well, you know, we don't want to pay you anymore because we want to keep you at a level to where it's bare existence, right? Bare existence. So it says in the bourgeois society, living labor is but a means to increase accumulated labor, right? In communist society, accumulated labor is but a means to widen, to enrich, to promote the existence of the laborer. So when you look at the rich, the affluent, the wealthy, in their construct, in their society, the way they look at a laborer is to accumulate more wealth and to constantly accumulate by more labor, more capital, because that is what your labor is equivalent to. That's what your labor brings, more capital, more wealth. So in this society, in a capitalist society, the industrialist, the capitalist is driven um, by increasing their own personal wealth. Whereas, in the communist society, the laborer himself, the fruits of his own labor, is to promote his own existence. So that, like I said in the first chapter that I created, like back in the days, you were working, but you were able to maybe take 2 or 3 vacations a year. And so now we're getting to a point now where you can't even afford one vacation. You can't afford any vacation. Your labor is completely exhausted. And if you're paying close attention where this capital is going, it's going back to the capitalists. Let me give you an example. So you own a house and you're paying mortgage. So the banks are in the business of making money. Those are from the capitalist end. So you're paying interest on your mortgage and you're paying interest on your house. So this is your wage that's going into paying the bank the mortgage, right, for the house. Then you also, to have a house, you're going to have different businesses, different capitalists that you're paying things for, like cable and water and all these things, amenities that you need. And so your labor, your income, your wage is going back to them. So you're just recycling. Your labor is just being recycled back to the capitalists. Understand, you're not enjoying your own fruits. And I know many of you can agree with me when I say that because I felt the same way. So I know exactly how you guys feel. But this document is explaining, which is the Communist Manifesto, it is explaining the situation in which all of us are in. And that's why I start look at it more carefully, and I start realizing, wait a minute, this is not what I've been told. So now I am giving it more attention and paying more attention as to what's going on because it is explaining what is really happening in real life, in real time. So let's continue. Um, it says here, in the bourgeoisie society, therefore, the past dominates the present. In communist society, the present dominates the past. In bourgeoisie society, capital is independent and has individuality, while the living person is dependent and has no individuality. While the living person is dependent and has no individuality, because it's all about capitalism. We all have that bug, really, right? We all are brought up in a capitalistic mind frame in society. It's just that there are those who understand what's happening, and there are the rest of us who are working because we feel, well, this is what we have to do. We have been conditioned and trained that this is the way it is, right? And so it says, and the abolition of the state of things is called by the bourgeoisie abolition of individuality and freedom. Because that's what they will say. Like, if I say to you, um, hey, I want to take away, all this rights that you have because you want to have, everything. You want to be able to. It'd be like the Bill Gates or the Oprah Winfrey's, where you have lots of money, lots of capital, lots of businesses, where you're hiring people, and basically you want to be a part of that exploitive nature as well, right? Because you look at it in a way to say, well, why not? I want to be rich and affluent like anyone else. I want to have the freedom, right? So you're looking at things in that way. We're being trained to look at things in that way, right? So what it's saying that is that abolition of individuality and freedom, and rightly so, when you read right here, because what the communists want to do is to do away with that kind of mindset, to do away, where a person is driven by, that self-indulged greed, that, want more than really what they need to really sustain themselves, sustain their life. And that's how capitalism works. So the abolition of bourgeois individuality, bourgeois independence, and bourgeois freedom is undoubtedly aimed at. So I know there will be those that come in the section. You're going to have people that are doing pretty well in this society, benefited tremendously from this society. They're going to say, yeah, we work hard and we have our own business and we built it into a multi-million business, and so we're living the good life. How dare you tell me that I can't have that? This is America. The only place where you could be a pauper to a billionaire, and that is true. And that is true. But at the same time, at the expense of who? At the same time, the inequality, the disparity between, the rich and poor. You could go in places like, LA and San Francisco, and you see poverty where people living on the street. Now, it's not to say that, these people are lazy, because not all of these people's stories are about them not wanting to do anything or whatever. Stop and talk to them, and you'll be surprised, what happened, to some of these folks. Some of them have been working for companies, and the companies went bankruptcy, and all their savings and 401k is gone, and they end up on the street. These are the stories of some of these people, right? So it's not everyone is just, want to not work or, not do anything, right? So, the focus on this document is just giving us an explanation as to how our society is just set up, how things are, right? So it says, by freedom is meant, under the present bourgeoisie condition of production, free trade, free selling, and buying. That's what is set up. Now, this document is very long. I'm going to go through different portion, and that's why I say to you guys that um, subscribe, because I'm going to be sharing this document and bringing points that you might be unaware, just to explain, like I said, how the society is structured and set up, because that's what the manifesto. And I'm going to bring in, I want to show you, it's called the 24 Protocols of the Elders of Zion. So you might have heard about it, you might not have heard about it, but I want to read a small excerpt that's related to this particular topic in the protocols. So I'm going to jump over to the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And right here, as you could see, the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion is 24 protocols. It's very hard to read, but I've read it over and over and study it, and then, study certain elements in our society and see that, all 24 protocols have been implemented in our time period. So it's not a fraud document because everything that it says really has been implemented. We're living it. So this is an excerpt from the 24 protocol. I believe this is protocol number 13. Let me scroll up. See, it says the protocol of the Learned Elders of Zion, protocol number 13. And right here, where it says we deceive workers. And I'm going to read a small excerpt from this one. I'm going to jump down and get to the point because I don't want to make these videos too long, because I'm going to break them up and I'm going to get into subsequent videos. I'm going to show you other parts of the protocols and also from the manifesto as well. The whole point is to show you the bigger picture. Like I said, it's a real reason why I created this channel, and I call it the bigger picture, because I want to bring some information, some awareness to those who want to know. And you might be someone that do not want to know, and that's fine, you know. But for those of you who would like to understand what's going on, all this information is online for you to read and for you to better understand. Because I believe if you know, then you could really get ahead of the game, or you could understand the predicament or why things are the way they are. Right? So we jump down, and I want to show you here, and we're going to start where it's written, all capitalized, where it says, we further distract them with amusement, games, pastimes, passions, people's places. Isn't that correct? Where they're saying, this is, by the way, the elders of Zion are part of the elite, where basically they are within or amongst us. They create lodges and secret societies, and they're heads of companies, and they've trained some of the best thinkers, basically whosoever you can imagine that's out there in high places, in political spaces, presidents. I mean, these people cover the whole spectrum of life. So what they're talking about is the average laborer, worker, the average person, you and I. When they say we further distract them with amusement, games, and pastime, I mean, take a look around you. What do you see people constantly involved in? Football, sports, games, basketball, right? Amusement, uh, TikTok, social medias, all these different avenues that has been created or constructed to distract you, to keep you focused on things while they are behind the scenes planning things, doing things that's going to really affect your life dramatically. It's just that you don't see that. So all these other things are created as distractions, right? Pastimes, games, passions. There's pretty much a game in basically everything from hockey and, basketball, football, whatever games you could think of is there. The Olympics, anything that to keep you busy, keep your mind occupied, where you're not really focusing on the things that really matters. It says people, places, people like to sit and watch, you know, um, rich people in their cribs, living the good life. That's what it means, people, places. I mean, their homes, lifestyle of the rich and famous, mansions and all these things that people like to be entertained to watch. And it says, soon we shall begin through the press, because yes, people, they own the press as well, to propose competitions in art, in sport, and in all kinds. These interests will finally distract their minds from questions in which we should find ourselves compelled to oppose them, growing more and more unaccustomed to reflect and form any opinions. So, what they're saying is that all these things that are put forth, what you're watching on the television, through the press, to all their media outlets, because they call it TV programs for a reason. It's just programming your mind, right? What they're saying is that it will allow you to grow more and more unaccustomed to reflect, meaning to what? To really think about what's happening, about what's going on, and even form your own opinion, because as you watch these programs are programming you to think the way that they want you to think. And that's the reason why they say, you know, um, right here, form any opinions of their own, because they're forming your opinions for you. Is that people will begin to talk in the same tone as we, because we alone shall be offering them new directions for thought. Because you're going to think that the opinions that you have is of your own, but you won't realize that that opinion has been placed there over a period of conditioning by you watching TV, involving all the different social medias, game, sport, watching their news that they control. I mean, everything in this society that they have a grasp on, they're actually programming your mind, and so that you will think as they want you to think, right? And so it says, just to finish up here, in the same tone as we alone shall be offering them new direction for thought, and of course to such person as will not be suspected of solidarity with us. So what you're seeing, or what I'm explaining here, and I hope you can understand uh, with this second part, because there's many things to uncover, but I won't make this too long. I'm already at about 33 minutes here, so I have to break these things up in segmented parts. But, we're going to continue, and like I said, I need you to like and share and give me a thumbs up and comment. Leave your comment in the comment section and let me know what you think. Give me some feedback, because I really would like to hear um, you guys' opinion, of these videos, and maybe if you have topics that I could discuss and I could research and go through, because my whole thing is to bring forth truth, is to wake your mind, is to let you see something that could potentially be hidden from you, and you're unaware of it, and it could literally change the way you think, or even challenge what you believe in. That's the whole point. That's the whole purpose of the bigger picture. So I'm going to stop right here, but this will continue, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.